My wife mocked my salary while I funded her business, so I cashed out quietly and left her broke, alone, and publicly embarrassed. I'm a 32-year-old guy who always believed marriage meant building something together brick by brick, hand in hand. I never cared about flashy titles or six-figure egos. I just wanted a partner who saw value in the quiet, consistent love I brought to the table. Rachel was magnetic, confident, the kind of woman who walked into a room and made people lean in. She called herself a visionary entrepreneur the night we met, sipping wine like she already owned the vineyard. She asked what I did, and when I told her I worked in IT, she smiled and said, "Ah, safe money. That's cute." I laughed it off at the time. I thought it was just her way of teasing. Over time, she made these little comments. "You'd never survive in the startup world, or you think too small," but I chalked it up to personality differences. She was bold. I was steady. I figured opposites could still build the same house, just with different tools. 6 months after our wedding, she brought me a business plan. It was half-formed, mostly ideas and buzzwords, but she looked at me with those wide, burning eyes like it was the next Amazon. "I just need a little seed money to get it off the ground," she said. "We'll both win." I didn't hesitate. I cashed out a portion of my stocks, dipped into the savings account I'd built since college, and gave her everything she asked for. I told myself this was what real love looked like, believing in each other even when the world didn't. But now, looking back, I realize I wasn't investing in our future. I was funding an illusion. And the worst part? I didn't see it coming. Not yet. But I would. Rachel launched her boutique with a ribbon-cutting ceremony and a photographer. She insisted we hire for social media clout. I stood beside her, smiling, arms wrapped around her waist, pretending I wasn't doing mental math in the back of my mind. Rent on the storefront. I covered it. The initial inventory. On my credit card. The designer who built her Shopify site paid up front by me. Her credit was so bad she couldn't even co-sign for a P.O. box. So everything went under my name. "Just temporary," she said. "Once the revenue kicks in, we'll switch it all over." But months passed, and nothing switched. Meanwhile, I was still paying our mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries. Name it. She called it holding down the fort. I called it drowning. Rachel said she needed time to network and build brand credibility. That apparently included overpriced brunches, influencer photo shoots, and weekend pop-ups that cost more to run than they brought in. I tried to sit her down once with a spreadsheet. "Let's just look at the numbers together," I said gently. Her eyes glazed over. She leaned back in her chair and smirked. "This is why guys like you work in IT. You don't get vision." That stung. But I said nothing. I closed the laptop because I still believed in her. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe I'd married someone who only saw me as a wallet with a pulse in bed at night. She scrolled Instagram, posting #BossBabe quotes while I ran numbers in my head, wondering how many more months we could afford this. But I kept telling myself, just a little longer. Once the business takes off, she'll see it. She thanked me. I was wrong. She didn't see me, and she never would online. Rachel was a powerhouse, self-made, CEO, visionary. Her captions read like TED Talks. Every post was a filtered shot of her in heels and blazers. Coffee in hand, fake smile on her lips. #grind culture. #women in business. #built, not bought, but behind closed doors. I was the joke. She mocked my 9-to-5 like it was some kind of disease. "You're so risk-averse. You'd probably wear seatbelts at your desk," she'd say in front of her friends, all sipping overpriced cocktails on our tab. They'd laugh like it was stand-up comedy. I'd smile, pretending it didn't hurt, but it did. It wore me down in a way I can't fully explain. I'd come home after 10 hours at work and find her lounging in silk pajamas, wine glass in hand, telling Instagram stories about the hustle. She stopped saying, "My husband." Now I was just my investor or my support system. She introduced me like I was a human GoFundMe. The worst night came when I walked past her office and heard her on a call. I wasn't snooping, I just froze when I heard my name. "If I had married someone more ambitious," she said, "I'd already be rich. He's ... fine. But he thinks too small." She laughed. So did the person on the other end. I stood there in the hallway, still holding the takeout I picked up on my way home. My hand was shaking. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I just placed the food on the counter like nothing happened. Went upstairs and stared at the ceiling for hours. That was the night something shifted in me. Not rage, just silence. Not yet revenge. But the seed of it. And it was growing. I turned 33 on a Saturday. Quiet milestone. Nothing big. I wasn't expecting fireworks, but maybe dinner. A card, something to say, "Hey, I see you," instead. I woke up to Rachel rushing around the house, barking into her Bluetooth headset. Arms full of promo bags. "The vendor's late and the lights aren't set up. Can you move your car? It's blocking the photographer." No happy birthday, no kiss. Just logistics. It took me a minute to realize what day it was. Not hers, mine. I waited until the chaos settled and gently said, "Hey, you know today's my birthday, right?" She froze for half a second, then rolled her eyes. "You're a grown man, not a child. Can we focus on the launch, please?" I swallowed hard and nodded. Of course. How silly of me to think I mattered that day. The party was a blur of champagne and curated selfies. Guests poured into the boutique, snapping photos with her new product line, gushing over the aesthetic. I hung back, playing host, restocking the drink table, taking coats, pretending I wasn't dying inside. Then came the speech. Rachel stood under a floral arch, mic in hand, glowing under the ring light. "This journey has been full of obstacles," she began, "but I pushed through every challenge on my own. I built this. From scratch, no mention of me. Not the man who paid for the website, or the lease, or the damn floral arch after the applause." One of her business friends came up to her and said, "I don't know how you do it all alone." Rachel smiled. "I've always had to carry the load myself." I kept clapping, but something inside me cracked. It didn't feel like love anymore. It felt like being used. And I knew then something had to change. That night, after the last guest left and Rachel passed out with a half-finished glass of Prosecco, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. No more clapping. No more hoping she'd see me. Just cold, quiet planning. I started by pulling up the bank statements, ours, hers, mine. The one she never looked at because money stresses her out. I combed through every charge, the pop-up booth rentals, the vendor deposits, the countless rideshare receipts labeled business lunch, all funded by me. Then I opened the folder I'd kept buried in a rarely used email. The one from a year ago when I insisted we form an LLC to protect her legally. What she didn't know was that I'd registered it under my name, kept 51% ownership, just in case. She skimmed the forms when I handed them to her. Too busy designing logos to read the fine print. I printed the lease, the IN application, the merchant account tied to my SSN, and then I changed the passwords to the joint account, to the business PayPal, to the savings account she never touched. I wasn't draining anything, not yet. I just needed the door locked from my side. For the first time, I didn't feel like a husband, not a partner, not even a man who mattered. I felt like an investor, one who had been conned, humiliated, and left holding the bill. And investors, they don't beg. They exit quietly, strategically, and when the timing is right. They take what's theirs. That night, I didn't sleep. But for the first time in a long while, I wasn't powerless. 2 weeks later, I was in our shared office late at night, combing through receipts for what felt like the 100th time. I told Rachel I was helping with taxes. She didn't care, just waved a hand and said, "Handle whatever." Babe, before heading to bed with a glass of wine and her usual networking scroll on Instagram. But as I dug deeper, I noticed something strange. Some vendor invoices weren't matching the deposits in our joint business account. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A rounding error, maybe someone paid in cash. Then I saw the logo, a second merchant account hidden in the back end of her website. Same business name, different email, different bank routing number. All funneling into an account under R. Carter Enterprises, a DBA I'd never seen before. She was double-dipping, skimming profits, hiding the highest-paying sales. I just stared at the screen for a long time, my heart weirdly calm. Not broken, just done. The next morning over coffee, I said, "Hey, I was reviewing some things and noticed a second merchant account tied to your site." She didn't flinch. Didn't even pretend to lie. "Oh," she said with a shrug. Yeah, I figured you wouldn't get it anyway. The other account gives me more flexibility." That was it. That was her explanation. I nodded slowly, not saying a word. Just stood up, rinsed my mug, and went to work. But in my head, I was gone. I didn't want a divorce. Not yet. I wanted silence, emptiness. I wanted her to feel the exact vacuum she'd left in me. She had built a business by cutting me out. Now, I was going to return the favor. Line by line, dollar by dollar, until the silence she gave me came back louder than she could handle. I moved like fog, slow, quiet, invisible, unless you knew exactly where to look. Over the next few weeks, I unraveled myself from everything that tied us together financially, legally. Emotionally, my first call was to a lawyer I'd quietly researched months earlier. I explained my situation, and he didn't even sound surprised. "You're not the first," he said. "But we'll make sure you're the last one she drains." We transferred my 51% stake in the LLC to a holding company I now fully controlled. On paper, nothing looked different. But she no longer owned a majority, and she didn't even know it. I opened a new checking account in a private bank she'd never heard of and rerouted my paycheck. Gone were the days of depositing everything into our shared future. Then, I canceled the personal credit card she used just for emergencies, the one she once used to buy a $600 networking dress. She noticed. Of course she did. "Hey," she said one morning, "the card got declined at brunch. Are we okay financially?" I gave her the most neutral look I could muster. "We've just got to tighten up a little. Inflation, you know?" She nodded like she understood, but I could see the unease flicker in her eyes. Still, she didn't ask for access or details. That would have required admitting she never looked in the first place. One night, I casually mentioned I might be applying for a new job out of state. She laughed with her mouth full. "Who would pay you more than crumbs?" She said, not even looking up from her phone. I smiled. Because I'd already accepted the offer months ago. She thought I was a small man with small dreams. But small men don't build escape routes in silence. They burn maps. Then walk out with the matches. It was a Tuesday morning when my phone lit up 6 missed calls. All from Rachel. By the 7th, I answered. Her voice came through like static, soaked in rage. "What the hell, David?" My card got declined in the middle of brunch with a client. I didn't flinch. I didn't even sigh. "That card was in my name," I said calmly, "and it doesn't exist anymore." Silence. Then the explosion. "You're sabotaging me." Do you have any idea how unprofessional that looked? You're ruining everything I built. Everything she built. I looked over at the 2 duffel bags sitting by the front door, zipped and ready. My laptop was already backed up. My name was off the lease. Utilities scheduled for cancellation. I took a slow breath and said, I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped paying for your version of reality, she screamed. Called me pathetic. A coward. Said I'd regret this. But the thing is, I didn't feel fear, or guilt, or even anger. Just release. I left her a letter on the kitchen counter. No dramatic declarations. No emotional goodbye. Just 2 pages, printed and signed. Page 1. A breakdown of every account, every payment, every transfer she ignored. Page 2. The legal list of what I'd officially pulled my name from. The boutique lease. The merchant platform. The business license. She had her self-made life now. For real, I walked out the front door without looking back. Got in my car and turned the ignition, feeling a kind of silence I hadn't known in years. No texts. No demands. No noise. Just peace. She didn't chase me. She didn't cry. She raged. But even that sounded empty, like a scream in an abandoned house. Within weeks of my exit, the cracks in Rachel's empire began to show. The boutique that once buzzed with curated lighting and curated lies now sat half-stocked and dim. Her vendors, once eager and loyal when the payments were on time, started pulling out. One supplier even posted publicly about a breach of contract from a female-run business. I didn't need to ask who they meant. The rent bounced. Twice, her name was finally on the lease now. And the landlord didn't care about hashtags or ring lights, just missed checks. On Instagram, she spun a new narrative. Cryptic black and white stories. Betrayal hurts, especially when it comes from the ones who claim to love you. No one succeeds alone. And that includes the leeches who pretend they're helping. People commented hearts and fire emojis. But behind the scenes, her followers started thinning out. And so did her friends. Brunch invites disappeared. The girls who once clung to her coattails stopped tagging her in stories. Even her bestie unfollowed her after a payment for an event space fell through. One day, I got a DM from someone who used to giggle at her seatbelt touch your desk joke. Hey, I just wanted to say, we had no idea she was like that. Honestly, she always talked like she built it all alone. I'm sorry I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I wasn't watching to gloat. I was just breathing. I got up every morning and made coffee in my new apartment. Went to work. Took walks. Listened to music again without thinking of invoices. Rachel had always said she carried the load herself. Now, for the first time, she was telling the truth. And it was crushing her. 3 months after walking away, I got an email from a local business network I'd mostly ignored in the past. Entrepreneur Spotlight panel featuring local founders. There, in bold font, was her name. Rachel Carter, CEO of RC Essentials. I stared at it for a while. Then scrolled down. Open seats for audience members. Panelist slots available by request. I clicked RSVP, but not as a guest. As a speaker by then, I'd already quietly built a small but powerful tech consulting startup. Just 5 of us, but we'd landed 2 solid clients and were already in the green. The night of the event, I walked in with my team business, casual, confident, calm. Rachel didn't notice me at first. She was busy fluffing her hair and prepping her talking points with the moderator. But when they announced me as the surprise closing speaker, her head whipped around like a snapped rubber band. I took the mic slowly, looked out at the sea of faces, then started talking. I want to tell you a story, I said, about what happens when you invest in someone who doesn't see only your resources, when your support becomes their spotlight, and you disappear in the glow. I didn't say her name, Didn't need to. I used to think loyalty meant sacrifice. But real partnership, it goes both ways. And when it doesn't, sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stop clapping. Step down and build something that claps back. The room went still, then erupted into applause. I saw her in the front row, frozen, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Someone near her leaned in and whispered, "Wait, is that her ex?" I didn't look at her, not once, because I wasn't there for her. I was there for me. And I'd never stood taller. I was walking toward the exit, still running on the adrenaline of the applause. When I felt a hand grip my arm, Rachel, she looked different, up close, smaller somehow. Her lipstick was smudged, eyes slightly glassy. But the fire in her voice was still there. "You had no right," she hissed. "That was our story. You humiliated me." I stared at her, calm. "No, I told my truth. You just didn't like hearing it out loud." Her voice dropped just enough to sound like regret. "Look, I get it now, okay? I was selfish. I didn't appreciate what you did for me. But I've changed. I really have." She grabbed my hand. "We could start over. Build something real this time, together." For a second, just one eye saw the woman I used to believe in. The dreamer with the bright eyes and big plans. But then I remembered sitting alone on my birthday, forgotten. I remembered the merchant account in someone else's name. I remembered the smirk when she called my income crumbs. So I asked her, voice low and steady, "Would you have loved me if I never paid for your dream?" Her mouth opened, then closed. No answer. Just a long pause and a slow turn of her head, like the question itself was too heavy to carry. And that was all I needed. I gently pulled my hand back. "You didn't want a partner, Rachel. You wanted a ladder." She blinked fast, but nothing fell. No tears. Just silence. Then I walked away, leaving her standing there in a room full of people who now knew exactly who she used to be because I'd stopped protecting the story, and for once, she had no script left to hide behind. I moved across the country 6 weeks after the panel. New apartment, new skyline, new peace. I took the job offer I'd quietly secured months earlier, same IT field. Better pay, better team, better everything. But the real upgrade wasn't the paycheck. It was the silence. The absence of constant disappointment. The freedom to come home and not feel invisible now. I'm engaged to someone who sees me, respects every hour I give, every dime I earn, every quiet thing I do without being asked. She doesn't call me small. She calls me solid. Rachel messaged once, months after I left. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I hope you're doing okay." I stared at the notification for a long time, then locked my phone and never replied. Sometimes revenge isn't about dramatic scenes or slamming doors. Sometimes it's just letting someone live with the silence they created. Watching them lose everything they once mocked you for. The boutique shut down. Her Instagram went quiet. She switched to posting quotes about lessons learned and healing alone. One night, sat down and wrote the full story on Reddit, just to get it out. Not for sympathy. Not for applause. I titled it, "I was never your ATM. I was your foundation." And now I've cashed out. It went viral within a day. Thousands of comments. Some angry. Most supportive. A few people messaged me saying, "I thought I was alone." Thank you. But it wasn't the virality that mattered. It was the exhale I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. The feeling of choosing myself. Finally, that was the last chapter. Not revenge. Not regret. Just peace. And a future she'll never be part of.